Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. Welcome back for another Nodge Spotlight. And would you believe it? We're announcing the appointment of a new manager, myself and Will again. If you remember back to, I think it must have been June when we were waxing lyrical about Liam Manning becoming our new coach on a 4-year deal. Well, how long did that last? Not even 4 or 5 months, but a new coach at the helm, as announced this morning after an exhaustive search, not from Bungay, but Belgium this time. We have officially appointed Philippe Clement as our new head coach after leaving Rangers in February. Probably one of the most glistening CVs of any Norwich coach that we've ever had. Successive league titles in Belgium, a good stint at Monaco, and a League Cup in Scotland with Rangers. I guess that counts. Generally well liked, but underdone by poor recruitment. By all accounts, has turned down a lot of other offers across Europe to essentially manage a relegation battle in the Championship. So good on you, Philippe. So we're just going to go through our thoughts on it, a bit of analysis of kind of what to expect. We don't really know. We're not experts. But yes, before we dive properly into it, William, how have you been over this long international break? And are you looking forward to Saturday now that there's a bit of a change of emphasis?
Yeah, the Leicester game feels like such a while ago now, which is really strange. Overall, I'm good. Smashed my new 10K PB, on the weekend, so very happy about that. And then 24 hours later, I'm like every single Norwich fan, like, who are we going to get as a new manager? I must have been scrolling through X for the last about 2 hours, from about 6 to 8 p.m. on Monday evening, and I think all the Norwich fans were feeling. I saw an odd suggestion of Nuno Espirito Santo. I saw Mark Fotheringham, but I certainly at 6 o'clock do not see photos of Philippe Clement as a new gaffer, and here he is, right? So that's all well and good fun, isn't it? So yeah, obviously we're gonna touch on it in much more detail as the video goes, but overall, mate, I'm very, very good. How about yourself?
Yeah, today is essentially Christmas for me. I get a whole batch of bookmarks just to, doop, 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 and just keep an eye on, so, but I think overwhelmingly there's not like the same overwhelming positivity that there was when Manning came aboard. There's not talks of 100 points, 100 goals, an FA Cup win, or any trips to Wembley. I feel like the fans have been very dented by the last few months. And obviously the key objective for Philippe Clement is to essentially stay up. Get mid-table would be an absolute bonus. There's obviously a lot of kind of different emotions going into this new appointment. I think, generally speaking, anything that isn't Liam Manning can be deemed as an improvement. But before we go into Philippe Clement himself, obviously, I think we're recording this on Tuesday night. At this point on last night, Monday night, we had absolutely no idea that this was going to happen, barring a little leak that happened quite later in the evening. We were half expecting a 2-horse race between Gary O'Neill and Jan Dahl Thomason, which is obviously transpired that none of those candidates have been given the job. Understand that Jan Dahl Thomason turned us down. Whether that was the case or whether we always knew that Clement would be our number one choice, we'll probably find out, in the coming weeks, and maybe it doesn't even matter. But we were obviously told after the Leicester game that there would be a very thorough process to find Liam Manning's replacement. It has been pretty thorough, and I think you can credit the board, credit Napa for not rushing into a decision overnight. They've obviously done their due diligence. They've done a number of interviews, and they've, by all accounts, brought a lot into their decision-making process. A lot of other names, obviously, outside of O'Neill and Yandel Thomason. What has been your kind of feelings over the whole kind of second managerial merry-go-round of the season for Norwich?
Yeah, it's been one of those starts where it feels like you could point your finger at anyone in the club and say, that's your fault, that's your fault, that's your fault. But in theory, it's just a cumulative effort of just poor underperformance. And that's been the case so far this season, right? And definitely, I think if Manning was still here, I think that would have continued. But now, obviously, we're now blessed with Clement. Very, very excited and intrigued actually to see how it's going to go. But I don't know about you, Jack, but I came into this head coach search, V2, should I say, this season. I think the main quality which I wanted from the new gaffer was someone that could galvanise and be a real good manager. I think that was really important. I just felt that the overall squad was just void of such confidence, such belief, and it just felt like a team that had no cohesion or anything really. So I think that was my main criteria point for who I wanted the next manager to be. It does actually sound like that Clement has got those qualities, so that's a real positive to some extent. Some other points which I was open to actually having as a manager as well is someone that can almost firefight actually, and it does feel like that is maybe a phrase which seems quite weird for Norwich because it feels like over the few years have been so ideological based, and a lot of managers like JHT have come to the club and have tried to embed their style. But I think the team was such in a terrible state and in such a void of confidence that it almost felt like they needed someone just to try and just scrape a few wins by. But I think as the week has settled down for me and I've become much more relaxed and chilled out, almost about the situation and more analytical about it, I think going for someone that's still got that attacking DNA to his game, as well as a good pragmatist as well, I think that could be very important for us. So maybe it's best that and we didn't go to the narrative of let's go for a firefight. So I wasn't necessarily thinking firefight in terms of Neil Warnock, Pulis, that kind of manager, but maybe someone in the ilk of Mowbray. I was thinking at the time, a bit controversial maybe, but that's where my head was at the time. But I think now as well, I think you also got to consider as well, like this team really aren't a very good defensive side, and they probably aren't a great attacking side. So then again, as well, it's kind of hard to think, well, what do we actually need as a club in a manager really? Because we ain't really got one major strength as a team at all. And I think what I overall came to the conclusion of, if someone can get the best out of Matthias Kvistgaard and Josh Sargent, for example, getting those players into real good areas, then I think that's got to be our building block. So then I think that maybe your mind does go to more of an attacking oriented coach, really. So, but overall, my head has just been going in spirals, really, about what manager I want and kind of what side I play, really. But I think overall, given our situation, 23rd in a championship, I think many fans are probably really feeling quite grateful for the appointment of Clement. Yourself, what do you kind of think about it, Jack?
Yeah, so I think it's. I was going to say it's one of those, not the Liam Manning isms. No, we are scraping Liam Manning isms clean. No more Liam Manning. I'm all about Philippe Clement. I think in terms of the stature of the manager, I think we discussed it in the last podcast that it's a tricky situation that Norwich didn't expect to be in. There's obviously huge question marks from most of the fans as to whether the players that we've recruited are actually good enough. And I think there is obviously a case to say that there is diamonds in the rough there. There is quality if you can find a high quality coach, like you said, Chris Gore and Josh Sargent. Pelle Matson is clearly well thought of. If you look at all the statistics and player profiles and things like that. So I agree with what you're saying in terms of finding an attacking coach that can perhaps utilize that. I think obviously you said about a firefighter. Our dear friend Henry Miller will be very sad that Roy Hodgson hasn't been appointed, but maybe we can get him on an interim basis, maybe as like an assistant or something. But it's it's obviously a really difficult situation, and I think there's lots of question marks over Clement's kind of experience in terms of the very top end of Belgium, the very top end of France, at the very top end of Scotland. He's now going to the very, not the very bottom, but a low period in the second tier of English football. We talk about one of the strengths of Manning was his experience in the Championship. And perhaps you're looking at a lack of Championship experiences as maybe a flaw. Whereas someone like a Gary O'Neill or a Yandel Thomason, whilst Gary O'Neill didn't technically manage in the Championship, it's still, it's it's still English football. The styles feels similar. I wasn't really inspired by either of those two options. I just think the Gary O'Neill link was just tedious because he was a former player. I don't really think he could have magically turned this ship around. And yeah, Yandel Thomason, I was not a fan of that link from the very start. So yeah, in terms of the other names that were linked, obviously, yeah, Russ would have just never worked. Will Still, I weirdly kind of vibed that for like half a day. I don't know why. His pedigree is clearly still high. A weird half season at Southampton, but we don't need more chaos. We need someone who's just going to come in and infinitely improve these players. And you're saying about their confidence, especially being on the floor. If they're coming into training and they're seeing a coach with the caliber of Philippe Clement, there's an argument to say that that's almost like an instant G up, an instant kind of motivator. And obviously, you're talking about an attacking coach, Chris Gore and Sargent. He will have Diallo at his disposal from sort of January, February time. He will have presumably some backing in January. So that'll be exciting. But in terms of the whole search itself, I think, like I said earlier, I think the fact that it was exhaustive and the fact that it was long, I don't think I was getting impatient. We were told that there was always going to be an appointment before Saturday. So I think you've only got to, you've got to look at it and think they've done their due diligence. They've done, all the investigative work that we would hope. Obviously, huge question marks over Ben Napper and his qualities as a sporting director. This, like we said last time, is his last big shot. But he obviously kept the news of Philippe Clement in his back pocket. That was very quiet, like I said, until the link last night. Obviously, social media was just going absolutely crazy once Thomason had been ruled out. Who these extra candidates could be? Yes, I mean, we were all convinced it would be Fozzie, absolutely 100%. Thank the Lord it wasn't. And yeah, I went to bed with seeing a few gifs of Philippe Clement, and I kind of thought, oh, that would be fun, but it's never going to happen. To then wake up to see it more or less confirmed. Will, what was your kind of first reaction? Obviously, you've probably read up about him more deeply since, but like gut reaction from remembering his time at Rangers. What was your initial feelings?
Yeah, I think my initial feelings is, what the hell are you doing at Norwich? Generally, I also looked at some of his clubs and win percentages which he had previously, and at Club Brugge he had a 57% win percentage there. Monaco it was at 51, and Rangers as well is at 64. Albeit the clubs of those sides, maybe it should have been higher to an extent, but I still think they're pretty respectable digits there, to be honest with you. But yeah, I was just really surprised he decided to come to Norwich, really. And even as well in the interview, it didn't really feel like Norwich, like as a club, and our status kind of convinced him. It was more so the people inside it, whether that was at Napham potentially, but I reckon maybe it was more so Atenaso and maybe his financial power and also his promises in terms of recruitment in January, which I think is probably the major factor for why he came. But I think overall, when I deeped it, I was more happy than discontent, I think. And I think that's probably the large overall feeling as well. And that's really positive, right? I think if fans are going to first react to a head coach in a positive and good manner, then I should hopefully think that will transpire to the pitch as well. Because this time next week, Norwich will be playing a game against Oxford, and I think that game is definitely for Norwich a 6-pointer. We have to get a result against Oxford next Tuesday, and as well as that against QPR at home as well. I'm expecting him to go and set up a team against Birmingham in such short notice and try and get a win there. I think it's a bit harsh, really, to kind of say, you know what, to do or die, you've got to get 3 points there because he's just so new into the job role, really. So I think the Birmingham game will be more so interesting in terms of the team selection and what personnel he might go for. I heard a few Rangers fans as well on social media saying that he's quite stubborn in terms of he likes to play in a 4-2-3-1 shape. I know many Norwich romanticists love the 4-2-3-1 shape under the Fart days. And that's a great example there, really. So hopefully we get to see some good shades of that as well, potentially. But I'm also interested, I think, in the game against Birmingham. I think Birmingham are just a good home for right now. I think they won 4-0 at home in the last 2 home games. So they are in a good spell right now, albeit they did lose against Borough. But I think it's going to be more so interesting against Birmingham, the team selection and kind of how he's going to approach that game. And I think that'll definitely tell us more about his play style, because I don't know about you guys. And also, if you have seen more information, please do lie to us in the comment section. But I've seen such a contradiction, really, between he likes to play attacking football, but also as well he's quite stubborn and quite a pragmatist, really. So I think I'm in a situation, Jack, I don't know about you, mate, where I'm not really bothered about our style of play right now because I feel like we are in such a precarious position. I feel like what this squad doesn't have compared to what the likes of our competitors like Oxford potentially have is, I think those teams like Oxford have the ability to go away from home and grind out a result, whereas I don't think this squad of players do. But obviously that might change with this new head coach, and I definitely should hopefully think it will do. But yeah, I think also at the end of the day as well, right, like, a manager is only as good as the players he's got on the pitch as well, right? And I think that might be quite telling. But yeah, seeing Norwich in the list of clubs he's recently managed is quite a surreal thing, really. But I'm just so intrigued by it all, really. I feel like my only prediction is I feel like it could go either so good for us or really bad for us, really. I think we've tried the almost pragmatism route in terms of Dean Smith, Liam Manning. You've tried the man management OTE. No, sorry, not OTE. Obsessed like player management, like manager wise in terms of David Wagner. Sorry. And you've also tried the theoretical based coach in the likes of Johannes Torup, and it now feels like Norwich are now going towards a reputable coach in Philippe Clement. So let's see if this cycle works. Really, we've had so much coaches now, Jack. You just hopefully Norwich can strike lucky in this one.
Yeah, and alluding to his illustrious CV, it is very bizarre to have a head coach who has had huge success elsewhere and has decided that Norwich will be his next destination. Normally, we're used to plucking managers from Hamilton or or Colchester even. The last time that we appointed a head coach that had sort of any sort of vague credentials was obviously Dean Smith. We were confident that he would keep us up. It didn't happen. You've got to hark back to one of Liam Manning's last quips in his press conferences. Well, not the last one, but one of his last poignant points that he made was, sacking me won't make a whole load of difference. And I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of the players only being as good. And we're talking about like injuries and fitness as well. He's not going to come in and instantly fix all the injuries and make everyone have a lot more stamina. That's just not going to happen. I think one of the big flaws with Liam Manning was that he just didn't know really what his best team or his best formation would be. It seems like he was trying too hard to be experimental and be sort of outside of the box, so to speak, Philippe Clement, like you said, enjoys a 4-2-3-1. Nice and simple. We've got Medic and Matson, potentially McLean as well, who can sit in that too. A Schwartau or a Chris Goran even that could fit in that hole. It's then a case of who those sort of side wingers are. But yeah, that feels like a tried and tested method that's worked for Norwich fans. Well, it doesn't matter what the fans think. It's what sort of worked for Norwich in the past. So yeah, it is just simply a case of getting us out of this mess. And we are obviously in a dire situation at the moment. He's looking at this project with Norwich thinking, well, there is so much that needs to be repaired. We can't score while seemingly having one of the best strikers in the division. We can't keep goals out despite having a back line that has a lot of championship experience. It's I don't feel like Norwich are that far away from improving results and actually playing well. What is I think we said this about Manning. What is the main thing or the first thing that Philippe Clement should be looking at and working on with this current Norwich team?
Yeah, so I think the first thing he's got to do really is try and assess his strengths. And I think the strengths of this team is Sargent and Kvisgarten. And I think playing, obviously, Sargent starting is a no-brainer, right? That's literally most easiest choice of any manager's career, really. I should think about who not to play up front. But I think more so as well, I'm starting to see some real promise in Kvisgarten, I think, just behind Sargent. I think although we had a really bad run of form, and this guy did score a few goals towards the back end of the last two games. I think we're starting to see a little bit of a connection there, and I think that's a real positive for us. And I think Clement has really got to try and play off that. I think Kvisgarten is a very, very good, clever runner in the sense that I think he's really good at picking out spaces to run, and I think he could be that connective block from midfield to attack for us as well. So I think he's got to try and go in there and almost try and elevate Sarge's and Kvisgarten's chemistry. I think that's going to be really, really important for us as well because, as I said earlier, I don't think you could build this team to be a defensive machine, really, or a majorly attacking unit as well from wide areas. So I think our best players probably are centrally orientated, and I think we've got to try and play off that right as well. As well as that as well, he's got to sort out that midfield. He really does. We've had absolutely no control there in recent games. I think in decent spells, Tomic has looked good in terms of winning back the ball. Probably more so towards the back end of the first few games, of this season. I think he showed some promise there. Obviously, he has tailed off. Matson as well. I think he showcased some nice pressing triggers as well at times, and he has backed up the press well in that regard. But I just still feel his IQ is a bit. I've got a lot to be desired for at the minute as well. So I think that's also got to get patched up. So it's got to try and really try and figure that midfield to dynamic if you just go for his 4-2-3-1. Look, I'd imagine Kenny McLean will probably be an instant starter. Right now, he's the only one that has shown character and personality to try and get us out of this mess. So I think he's got to start, and he also as well provides leadership. I mean, I think any game which Norwich fans have watched this season, you can just clearly tell that the Norwich players are looking for inspiration, and that always comes from Kenny. So then you've only got one choice next to Kenny to fill, right? And that could either be the likes of Jacob Wright potentially as well, which I think many fans want to see because I think he showcased some real good, promising moments to the back end of last season. I feel like he was maybe harshly dropped, I think, and I do think although Manning did opt for having absolute well beasts in that midfield too, almost players who were so physically capable all the time. I think at times he did miss a trick in some games playing right, and I think that would have definitely helped us progress centrally as well. So he's got loads of options in that midfield two position as well, really. But I think the issue as well, and where I've also got sympathy from as well, is who do you play out wide as well? Obviously, Anthony Senech is currently out injured as well. Oscar Schwartz has looked promising in the left wing role, albeit I'd argue that's probably his third best position for Norwich, which is quite telling, really. And he's also a teenager as well, so he's done well for himself. But that right wing slot as well is a real problem as well. Because obviously you've got Son actually who was injured and probably isn't ugly a right winger either. Then you've also got Matej Jurasek, who Norwich spent a lot of money on. I do think at times Matej has shown a tad glimpse of quality, but I think generally he looks quite unfit at the minute as well. So it's about how do you try and implement him into the team. So I think there's positions in the pitch where where I feel there are positions like striker position, attacking midfield position, one of the CDM roles, and obviously the goalkeeper where they pick themselves. But he's got so much other position in the team where it's still up for grabs, and that just shows how bad it's been this season, really. But yeah, I think the major priority for Clement has got to be he's got to win the next 2 home games. That's an absolute must after such a dire run of games as well. But I do think if he does win those 2 games, he's immediately got the fans on side, and that is so important. By the way, I don't think I've been on the podcast since that Leicester game, but I thought the fans were absolutely outstanding during that game as well, and we're definitely going to need them coming towards the back end of this season as well. So, yeah, I think the major priorities, as I outlined there, trying to enhance the chemistry between Kvisgarten and Sargent, and trying to find a real good, robust midfield partner in there as well. But it's also got to make us hard to beat as well. The mentality of this group is so fragile, and he's got to be a real motivator, and he's got to galvanise. That's the most important point. He's got to galvanise because the players mentally just look so fragile. And I think having a manager now that's immediately going to demand respect in terms of he's got a great CV. But he's just got to get those management qualities right, because if not, it could be a very long rest of the season for Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should just play Liam Gibbs in the 10. Is he injured? He probably is injured.
I think he's injured again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there are attacking options. I think I said earlier that obviously January isn't really that far away. And Atanasio has very clearly said that relegation is not an option. So, put your hand in your pocket, get us 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 wingers that we need. Maybe there can be some progress there. It is interesting. I think you said, just about the, how dire we are at the moment in terms of our kind of situation. Obviously, he's literally just left. Well, not literally just left, but his last role was with Rangers, which was by all accounts a club that was in chaos behind the scenes. Obviously, Russ went in and still couldn't steer the ship. I mean, you can't say that Norwich isn't in chaos. I'm sure he must have seen all the pictures of fans protesting about the very man who's just hired him. There probably is question marks over, is this perhaps the right choice and the right move? But I mean, listing off his win percentages, if he were to drastically fail at Norwich City, that would be very unlike the rest of his career. It would be a huge blot on that CV, which has, by all accounts, been fantastic. Not to say that it won't happen. Liam Manning had a half decent win percentage at all of his clubs, and look where that left him. It's such a difficult question, and I think you've sort of alluded to it earlier. Do you think that he is capable of turning this ship around, of getting us out of this relegation position? Because for all the talk during these discussions were that Norwich City were going to hire a coach with the hopes of that coach then taking us to the Premier League. There's obviously one very vital part of this, which is not going to League One first. Maybe we're doing a double, maybe we're doing a Lambert, but I would rather not. Do you think that he is enough to get us out of this really sticky situation?
Could you just imagine Philippe Clement playing managing in the Papa John's Trophy against Brighton under 21s next year? Goodness me, that would be some fall from grace, wouldn't it? I'm sorry to all the listeners to have bled your screens with that thought, but look, I think overall the promising thing is I think he's done a good job at all the other clubs previously, and those clubs are much, much bigger than Norwich as well. And he has been in those roles in similar situations as well. So I think definitely we could take much encouragement from that as well. I'm just still in absolute shock that he's come to Norwich, to be honest with you. Just so unexpected, really. So obviously fair play and fair dues as well to everyone involved getting it over the line. But that's a big question, right? Can he turn us around? And I think the first 2 weeks are going to be very, very telling for me. I think because that's when you get the immediate buy-in, and that's where you get the attitude of the players will really, really shine through. And I think if the attitude's good and the ability to fight for one another's good, and the ability to concentrate during really, really pressurizing moments is good, then I think they've got a real, real good chance as well. So um, overall, I'm hopeful. I really am, because I think you have to be in this situation really, because it couldn't got any worse under Manning and co as well. I just, I'm just an absolute awe that he's here, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think, as I said there, he needs to have real, real good mental qualities and skills where he could really, really try and galvanise a team of players who have such love, confidence as well. Obviously, I've outlined previously some real tactical thoughts there as well in terms of previous comments I made, but it's going to be really interesting, right, as well. And I think if Norwich would have went into a direction where they went for a more philosophical coach in the likes of Russell Martin or like a JHT rebrand, if you like, then I think that would have been much more warning bells to me, really, because you come into a spell this season now where the fixture congestion gets much more tighter and limited as well. So I feel like we needed to get someone more orientated towards getting a real response from the team rather than going for someone who's got a real kind of great way of playing, if that makes sense. I think results right now are crucial. We've got such an important two home games coming up as well, and I just really do think the board did get it right in the sense that it gave someone too ideological, if that makes sense as well. So, but overall, mate, who knows? Football is full of mystery and intrigue, and I just pray that the players can get a real respect and sense for how he works, stuff like that, and they can really try and galvanise and really move forward with this coach, really. But it just doesn't really feel like, to me, he's a Norwich manager, and that's the one thing I've got in my head where it just feels so different. And it just feels like, to me, is it going to work? Is it not? It feels like it's either going to go fantastically or it's going to go horribly. But again, as well, it's been awarded a 4-year deal. I think that also tells us a lot as well. Yeah, and if it doesn't go well, then I do worry for Atenasio's direct debit each month if they're having to keep paying off Farker, Torrup, and Liam Manning as well. But yeah, I feel like this probably could go one of two ways, really. Yourself, Jack, mate?
I think you have to be absolutely clear on this, that this is a coup, that this is a huge appointment for not just Norwich City, but a club 23rd in the Championship. I think I've seen a lot of reactions from Norwich fans today who are instantly, their reaction is like, meh, not for me. Come on, we are destined for League One. Who do you honestly think that we could have appointed in this situation? This is, on paper, as you know, it's not even the best of the batch. This is above the levels of the other coaches that we were even in conversation with. And I'm weirdly quite glad that it was kept as a secret, because it's just made the whole experience all that more better. But exactly the case that we've gone back and forth with, it does not matter what we think or whether we believe this will be good for us or whether we think he'll play nice football. It does not matter, because we just need someone to get us out of this mire. And I think if Liam Manning had left Norwich City and we were, for example, 15th in the Championship, Philippe Clement's job would be a little bit different. It would be take this decent team and get back to fighting towards the playoffs. Now it is just pure survival, and then whatever happens after that. So yeah, it on paper it should go well, but again, the form is abysmal. The players' confidence is on the floor. We couldn't beat Sheffield Wednesday, who were on negative points. Everything is spiraling downwards, as we have continuously said on the channel through multiple videos and podcasts. But it's not this isn't a job that Philippe Clement is going to come in and just instantly fix. There's likely going to be a new manager bounce. You'd hope that he wins that first home game, just so that the fans get something. I mean, I spent over 60 quid on my 2 one-off tickets to Hull. That's 60 quid down the drain. Thanks, Joe Gilhart. But just to sort of finish off our kind of overall analysis, there is obviously the big elephant in the room, which is Liam Manning is no longer in position, but Ben Napper is not only in position, but is clearly pivotal to this entire decision-making protest, and he is the figurehead. He is the poster boy that has led to all the heated protests that you were, I believe, part of after Leicester. Well, of course you were. There was about 3,000 people outside the director's box. So I don't think this appointment completely negates any ill feelings towards Napper, but obviously there will likely be an official press conference, an official unveiling, where Ben Napper will finally present his face to the media after a number of months of sort of hiding away and refusing to talk to anyone. How do you think that's going to go down? Do you think that it's going to be a fun experience for Ben? Do you think it's going to be probably 70% questions about him and his sporting directorship, or do you think he's going to very delicately dodge them like an astute politician?
Yeah, I feel like the questions would have probably been a much worse if Clement was obviously not here at the helm. But I think maybe due to him pulling off this pretty commendable hiring, I think he might not get as much stick. But I still think he's going to get a lot of real fierce questioning come his way, and rightly so, because what happened in the previous regime was completely unacceptable, and he deserves to be questioned about that. And he should have spoken to the fans about that earlier, because the fans ultimately are the ones who pay so much money each year to watch this this style of football. And the style of football over the last 2 years under his tenureship has been quite frankly abysmal, in the sense that it's had its sparks, but it's just lacked real consistency. And that is the one thing which makes a real good football team, right? And if you're charging prices which are quite frankly a bit of a rip-off for where you sit in the league table, then you're bound to get questions, and you should get some flack for how you've recruited in that sense as well. And no matter how well Clement does, the fact, and to be fair, these players might come good, Clement might unlock them, but I still do think a fair few of the players that we've signed for a combined fee of £50+ million for a team in this league, and that is quite frankly a huge amount of money. There should be question on himself, and he should be criticised for that, because there are some players who aren't at this level, and they probably will get found out again under this manager as well. So look, let's see how Clement goes, but I do get a real strong feeling that there'll definitely be some fierce questions which comes Napper's way, really. And I think if I was going to structure this unveiling, I think I'd have one section where it's him and Clement speaking, obviously, about the future and stuff like that. And then if I was Napper, I would take some ownership and go in a room with the likes of the local journalists, and also obviously as well some journalists who kind of cover Ashley as well. I don't think Clement should be in the same room when you're going to ask questions about Napper and the previous regime. I just think that would be quite frankly a bit harsh on the new manager. But look, that's how football and the media works, right? That might not be able to come into fruition, really. So I just hope that the overriding feeling from the unveilment, isn't one of the press grilling Napa, and obviously rightly so. He should get grilled for what he's done over the last few years, but hopefully it's one of optimism and it isn't more so toxicity, because that brand of T word cannot be associated with us right now, as we are in one hell of a dogfight and we need to create unity. And I think if I was Napa, I would speak to the person which deals with the media and stuff like that to do an interview where he's on his own and he can speak to the journalists in that format, because otherwise I think it might get a bit too toxic, and I think that isn't really what Clement really wants, and I think that kind of defines the object of press environment, because you want to get excited by a new manager and you want to speak about the future and hear his ideas and stuff like that as well. So let's see what happens, mate. But I do sense whenever this press conference does occur, I reckon maybe so Thursday, Friday. Let's hope it goes well and there's some real exciting quotes to try and get excited about, really. What about yourself, mate?
Yeah, I think Ben Napa can't get out of this scot-free. He can't just be like, oh, look at this new shiny manager. Let's just ignore all of these very angry protests and very valid question marks over my own credentials. His neck is very much on the line and very much based, his future might be based on this single managerial decision. So obviously, taken a lot of time out to assess all the different options. It is make or break for him. He will have a January with, like we said, some money. That's then another huge opportunity for him to bolster the squad in a way that Philippe Clement wants, and not necessarily in a way that Liam Manning wants, which is, buying 2 extra defensive midfielders when we didn't really need it. Maybe he'll go out and actually sign some players with championship experience. It's obviously no brainer that one of our best performers so far this season has been Jovan Makama, which is from League One Lincoln. Maybe we need to just go back to that route rather than signing players from Silkeborg or Sporting. But yes, what do you all think about Philippe Clement's appointment? Are you a Rangers fan watching on? If so, do you have your own opinions? Are you a Celtic fan watching on with a bit of glee? We don't care. Are you a Monaco fan? Probably. I don't think anyone from Monaco has ever watched Nodge Spotlight, but probably some people from Bruges. Bruges is a lovely city. I've been there a couple of times. Very nice beer, William, if you haven't been already. Yes, well, there we have it. Philippe Clement is the new head coach of Norwich City. With Christmas coming along, will he be delivering us loads of gifts, or will we just be left covered in coal? This has been Nodge Spotlight. Please do like, subscribe, and we'll see you again very soon.